Hello mathematicians, Miss Howard here. In today's lesson we are going to be learning about measurement. This is a basic introduction to measurement. I want you to think for a moment. What types of things can be measured? I know when I take a moment to think, the first thing that pops into my head is baking. The other day, I helped my mom bake some cookies for my sister's birthday. So I think of all the things I had to measure. I had to measure the flour and the sugar and the chocolate chips and the vanilla extract and all the other ingredients I need. There are many different things that can be measured. You can measure the length of a room, and we have a tape measure here to measure that. You can measure the mass of a pencil. This is a type of a scale. You can measure the weight of a bag of apples. You can measure the energy of motion of particles in matter, and we know this as temperature. You can measure the volume of a cereal box, and you can measure the capacity of a carton of milk. You also can measure time. Think about clocks, stopwatches, things like that. But these are the ones that we are going to be focusing on for today. What is length? Length is a word that you have heard before in your previous math classes. You've probably heard this word also during science. Length is the distance from one point to another. And I have some examples down here. The distance from Watkinsville to Pensacola, Florida is 388 6/10 miles. The length of the picture frame is 30 centimeters. Notice we have measurement in miles, length in miles, and we have length in centimeters. What is weight? Weight is the measurement of the pull of gravity on an object. When we think of weight, we think about how heavy something is. The woman weighs 130 pounds. The 3 apples weigh 210 grams. And in this example, we have pounds and grams. What is mass? And you see in my picture right here I have mass versus weight. The idea of mass and weight is something that actually confuses a lot of people. A lot of people don't know the difference between the weight of something and the mass of something. So I really want us to dive in, and I have some pictures to help me explain this to you. So let's start over here and look at weight. Weight is the measure of how hard gravity pulls down on an object. The weight of an object can change. Weight is measured in something called newtons. Now look over here at my picture. I have the earth here, and I have the moon here. There's a man right here that weighs 200 pounds on earth. But let's say we put him on a rocket and we send him over to the moon. When he stands on the surface of the moon, he only weighs 33 pounds. So he did not lose all that weight on the rocket. He didn't just not eat and lose a bunch of weight. The reason why he weighs less, or seems to weigh less, is because there's less gravity on the moon. And since there's less gravity, there's not as much of a pull towards the moon. But on Earth, we have quite a bit of gravity, so that downward pull is more. So that's weight. Now let's look at mass. Mass is the measure of the amount of matter an object contains. So the mass of an object will never change. Mass is measured in pounds or ounces. So if we go back to our picture over here with the moon and the earth, the man standing here, whatever amount of mass that he has is the same when he goes to the moon. We didn't cut off any arms or legs or anything like that. His mass is exactly the same. Here's another example. If you look at the picture, you have the little boy holding the bowling ball, and he looks like he's struggling there. And then you have this astronaut that's doing that cool like basketball thing where it's spinning around. And it says the bowling ball's mass will not change based on location, but the weight of the bowling ball will be much lighter on the moon due to the difference in gravity. What is capacity? Capacity is the amount of something a container can hold. we can measure the capacity of anything that can hold something else. For example, the container contains 1 gallon of paint. The jug over here contains 500 milliliters of orange juice. So look at our units. We have gallon and we have milliliters. What is volume? Volume is how much space an object takes up. It includes solids, liquids, and gases. Here's some examples. If you are blowing up a balloon, you are increasing the volume of gas. Think about it. When you're blowing that air out of your mouth into the balloon, there's more gas now in that balloon. That's why that balloon expands. The volume of the cereal box is 192 inches cubed. So we're looking at the volume of this cereal box. We're trying to see, okay, how much would fill up the complete inside of this box would give me the volume. And I like to also think about, okay, if I have 1-inch little cubes, think about our Unifix cubes, how many of those would fit inside of this box? That's how I'd calculate the volume. Now let's take some time to test our brains a little bit. I have different scenarios and I want us to think, what exactly are we measuring? Are we measuring length? Are we measuring mass? Are we measuring weight? Are we measuring volume? Are we measuring capacity? So I want us to be thinking these through in our brains while I work through them for us. So let's look at the first one. The first one says you want to find out how long a nail is. This is kind of a keyword that jumps out at me, how long. So let's think, is that capacity, is that volume? But long, you're talking about length. You're looking at one point to another point, so that would be length. If you said that was length, you are correct. Let's look at the next one. You want to find out how much liquid is in a test tube. How much liquid is inside something else? It's not length. Think for a moment, what do you think it would be? I'm going to give you a second to think. You can look back at your notes. If you said capacity, you are correct. Great job. Let's look at the next one. You want to find out how heavy a stack of books are. How heavy? Heavy, you should automatically know, oh, that is weight. How heavy something is, that is your weight. And then you want to find out how much hay is in a hay bale. We're not talking about length, how long it is. We're not talking about how much it weighs. We're talking about how much hay is inside a hay bale. It's not capacity. We're not filling something up. We're actually looking at the volume. Think back to when we looked at the cereal. We're looking at the amount on the inside. That is volume. Oh my, something is terribly wrong. Someone wrote, the can of Coke measures 12. 12. 12 what? The unit is not provided. So we don't know. It could be 12 centimeters. Could be 12 cats. Could be 12 ounces. We don't know. So when we're talking about measurement, it's very important that we include our unit. So looking at units and measurement, what is a unit? A unit is the standard something is measured by. If you think back to kindergarten and first grade and probably even second grade, you did a lot of non-standard measurement where you would measure something and see, okay, how many pencils long is this? How many hands long is this? How many paper clips long is this? But now we're moving over to really focusing on standard measurement. We use this as mathematicians and as scientists to give us more of an accurate reading of an amount of something. So standard measurement, you usually have you always have numbers and some type of scale to be able to measure something. This also is helpful when you're comparing measurements with somebody else. Think about it. If I'm measuring and I say the chair is 3 feet or footprints long. Okay, well that's my foot, not maybe a child's foot. So we want all of our measurement to be standard so that it's the same across the board. I'm not sure if you know this, but there are 2 main systems of measurement used throughout the world. There is the customary system of measurement, and there's the metric system of measurement. And instead of just telling you the two, I want to tell you a little bit about each of these 2 different systems of measurement. Let's look at customary first. Customary is based on whole numbers and fractional parts. This is actually the system of measurement that we use in the United States. This is very familiar to us. Units have no predictable relationship to each other or place value. So if you think about it, 2 cups equals a pint, or in a pint. Where did that come from? It's very interesting to think about, and you can get really caught up in thinking about and looking into the history and looking into why we have a customary system of measurement here in the United States. There's actually only 2 other countries, and I have them here, that follow or use the customary system of measurement, which is very interesting to me. Let's look over at the other system of measurement, the metric system. This is based on powers of 10. And if you think, oh, Miss Howard, we have learned about powers of 10. It doesn't make sense. We should have a measurement system of powers of 10. I would agree with you on that, but sometimes things just are what they are. This is also the international standard for measurement. This is used all around the world. The metric system is used all around the world except for in these 3 countries. Now, the preferred system of weight and measurement for the U.S., trade and commerce, and is used in scientific research and development. So, even though the metric system is not the primary system, measurement system used in the United States does use it for scientific reasoning and for commerce and trade. Because if everybody else in the world is using it, we've got to at least use it when we're dealing with everybody else in the world. But the U.S. really sticks to using the customary system and only uses the metric system when it has to. Now this is very important. I would write this down. So if at any time you need to pause or rewind or whatever you need to do, you can go ahead and do that, but you need to write this down. This is very, very important. This is going to build on what we are going to be doing over the next couple of weeks. So let's first look at the customary system. So we have our length, we have our weight/mass, and here we're looking at, we call it more weight, and then we have our capacity, volume, and we in the United States really refer to it as capacity. So for length, you have inch, foot, yard, mile. For weight, you have ounce, pound, and ton. For capacity, you have fluid ounces, cup, pint, quart, and gallon. Now let's look at the metric system. For the metric system, if you see, I kind of have a little bit more going on. I have this down here. I'll explain this in a minute. But with a metric system for length, your base unit for length is meter. For weight, but with the metric system, they usually refer to it as mass. It is a gram. That's your base unit. And for the metric system, when talking about capacity, they usually talk about it as volume, and the base unit is liter. So make sure you have that written down. Now this down here, we're going to be talking more about this in future lessons. But when you look at this, these are prefixes, and we know prefixes from humanities teachers that prefixes go at the beginning of words. So if we're looking at length, these are all the different types of measurement units for length. We could say kilometer, hectometer, decameter, just a meter, that's your base, decimeter, centimeter, and millimeter. Those are all the units for length. Same thing with mass. Kilogram, hectogram, decagram, just plain gram, decigram, centigram, and milligram. Those are all for measuring mass. And then for volume, kiloliter, hectoliter, decaliter, liter, deciliter, centiliter, milliliter. Those are all units for volume. Don't worry about these arrows yet. We're going to be talking about that in the smaller units, bigger units. We'll talk about that later. But kilometer is larger than a millimeter. And that is all for today. Remember, if you need to rewatch this video and take additional notes, please do so. Have a great day.